anywhere and everywhere, near or far. Wherever the news is, we will be there. Signature TV. News in your pocket.
All right, that's the much we can take on that interview about 2G Bello's peace move and the implications. And now we're switching over to another guest we have joining us from Port Harcourt, Vivian Douglas. We're going to be looking at the resurgent acts of gagging the media in Nigeria. I mean, this has been a rough season for the Nigerian press. In the Niger State, Gagging FM was abruptly sealed off by the government. And we also had a similar situation happen in Ebonyi as well. So we're going to be looking at what that means for the Nigerian press. Good morning, Vivian. Thank you for joining us. She's a media practitioner talking on the resurgent act of gagging the media in Nigeria. Good morning, Vivian.
Hello, good morning. Good to have you. And thanks for having me too.
Good morning, Vivian.
Good morning.
How are you, Vivian? I am Lillian.
Hello, Lillian. Good to have you.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. I can hear you.
Okay, how are you and how is Port Harcourt?
I'm very well. Port Harcourt, we're somewhat under the weather. We don't know what direction the government is going, but we are breathing and we are alive and grateful to still be here with you all.
Now let's go right into our topic of discussion. I mean, we're seeing issues of acts of gagging the media, in Nigeria. I mean, we have two incidents, Gagging FM, and even one in Ebonyi State with Legacy FM, shutting down and suspending, people and journalists that work in those stations. So now, how would you say that reflects the current state of, press freedom in Nigeria?
Okay, let me go back to 2024 during the book launch where the Minister for Information and Communications, Mr. Idris, made it clear that this government is going to be media friendly and they won't be gagging, they will ensure freedom and all of that. But the truth of the matter is, over time, when the government says something, one wonders, should we really believe them that this is what is going to happen? It's actually an aberration. A lot of people may have their egos, and there's a lot of stories about Tinubu as a person. But what we also acknowledge is that he's quite exposed. He's quite exposed. Now, there are certain things, based on that, there are certain things we don't expect to happen under the Tinubu's administration. And why I say we don't expect that is simple. This is 2025. I have always said there are better ways to handle issues. Let's take the one for the Gagging FM, for instance. So ask yourself, how do you, a governor, you go for an event, a political event and then you go in there, you make an announcement that they basically tell your guys to go and shut down the radio station. Or then you begin to talk about how they don't have license and all kinds of funny rhetoric, because like the manager asks, how do you operate the radio station without a license? It's not even realistic. So at the point when we have this conversation about gagging, the question is, do we have a government in this country that understands that this is, the world is a global village right now, that every action you take runs down the country, the state, and the people itself? Do we have such people? Do they understand the impact of their actions? Why are you shutting down Gagging FM? Let's go back to it once again. If you have a personal vendetta, which is what we seem to have these days, people have a personal vendetta, then they put it out on innocent people that have nothing to do with that. If you claim that, this is what they are doing, I believe there are appropriate measures to address that. One of these measures being writing the NBC or other relevant institutions to tell them, listen, this is what, making an official report. You don't tell your people to go shut down the radio station. I think we're living in Banana Republic anyway. I guess the average Nigerian seems to think we're living in Banana Republic. So having said that, I honestly think that what we have today in Nigeria called government needs to check itself properly, because we are not actually operating like a modern society. So to me, there was no issue around the Badagi issue other than someone feeling like they have certain power, and because they will have institutions that don't work, they can do whatever they want. When that announcement was made and they began to make attempt to shut down Badagi FM, that is when you expect NBC to stand up and make a bold statement saying, no, you cannot do this. Get the institutions of law to back up their position. NBC shouldn't just be seen as an organization that comes up to speak or to shut down stations when they want to please the government or anything of that nature. So I don't agree with that. The one for the FM in Ebony State, I'm trying to remember the name now. I find it a bit disturbing, again, that in 2025, a government wakes up because, what are you even talking about? What are you talking about? A government wakes up because you feel some kind of way about a certain individual, the manager of the station, and then you go on to shut down the radio station. Let me give you a quick example on that. This guy, the acting manager or general manager of the radio station in Ebony State, I had to check him out. I wanted to know what exactly he said that could lead to, this kind of to shock him out of his practice and all of that. I checked it out, and to me, I'm not saying this because he's a colleague, but I'm saying this because we should understand that we can actually live in a sane world without making a mess of everything. That young man, to the best of my knowledge, gave him a quality critical constructive criticism that if the governor of Ebony State had a listening ear, if Winfrey had actually read what this guy wrote, I don't see any reason why his commissioner and SAs will be attacking him. Someone told you, we actually love you, governor. We want you to go down to the basics. You make promises. The people of Ebony State believe in you, but as it is, what we are seeing is contrary to what you promised. Listen, if we have individuals whose minds are sane enough, I don't know what they are dealing with, I'm not trying to judge them. We through, as a matter of fact, should call this young man that's managing that radio station, employ him to be his eyes, to help him, even if he's not on a full employment, but get him to be his eyes, to help him see what he's not able to see. Because people in office need people who are independent-minded enough to tell them, sir, ma'am, you are doing the wrong thing. This is what is going on. Except we're not practicing democracy. Why would you lose his job? And to the radio station who actually sacked this, the manager, I'm thinking in my head, is this really about what he said? Or is he a threat to someone in the organization? Or hold on, is Winfrey the owner of the radio station? You know how they use the studios to own the radio station, broadcast organizations, and then behind closed doors, they determine what a media practitioner would say and not say. I honestly didn't see anything wrong in what the manager said. I'm not saying it because he's a colleague, because if he had also said something that I feel is contrary, I would have called him out when I saw the post. So I don't see anything wrong in what he said other than someone who cares about his state, who cares about his governor, and wants to make sure that whatever is going on in the state is being heard, and his governor is allowed to know this and to fix what needs to be fixed. If we're practicing real democracy, if Winfrey fails to fulfill his campaign promises, he has no basis to return as a governor. But hey, maybe they know how to buy their way into government offices and political positions, so they don't really care what anybody says or the impact of what their actions may have on the people. So either way you look at it is totally wrong. There are no reasons for this gag or for the one in Gagging FM or to sack the radio manager in Ebony State. It is totally uncalled for. That is my honest take on that.
To know, seeing that some of these states are APC dominated, like Mina State and also Ebonyi State, and with the fact that this general manager was sacked, I want to know, is this politically influenced? Is this what we are going to expect for 2027 election? Are they trying to root out or weed out all those people and agencies that are not in support of their government?
It's clear, Lillian, it's clear that this of both places have government influence. And like I said, it's embarrassing because the minister last year did say that, listen, we are not going to gag the media, we're going to work with the media. And it's also more of a government influence because, as it is, the minister, someone at the federal level, or maybe from the National Orientation Agency, which is also under the minister, it is at this point should have actually spoken up about it. We should have, I've not read anything from NBC. Maybe they've said something I didn't see. So honestly speaking, without being told, the average person on the street clearly knows that both places and even more all have political influences. The APC government shows their hand. The man in Mina was in a political union APC meeting when he gave the announcement. That is what makes it more ridiculous because you should know better. There are places and ways to address this. And then the people were now attempting to carry out the shutdown of the station, making all kinds of false claims. The one in Ebony State, the Wilderness Commissioner and I think one of his aides came out and made a public statement. So yes, they are all both politically influenced by the APC government.
All right, now looking at the dimensions to this, like the legal dimension or even the ethical dimension, what would you say are the dangers, when political authorities now directly intervene in media operations, which they are not supposed to anyway, instead of allowing the statutory regulators, which is the NBC, to handle these issues or these disputes? What would you say are the dangers that can come up from, this influence of government in the media?
Okay, the dangers, just like we have beginning to experience in recent time in Nigeria's democracy, is the fact that you're basically telling radio station owners who depend on government sponsors or government patronage, if you may, that you could hear the guy in Ebony State talking about how the governor has been doing this for them, fixing their roads, maybe giving them adverts or what have you. And basically, he's saying because the government is still carrying out his responsibility using a platform that was set up as a broadcast organization. Basically, he's saying, listen, you have no business, criticizing the government. But again, what if you don't criticize the government? How is this democracy? How can we call it democracy? So to me, the danger we find ourselves in is the death of broadcast media or communication or information management or the independence of the media being influenced on by the government of the day. And unfortunately, I keep bringing this back to the NBC's table. Unfortunately, the NBC keeps mum. However, when they find any breach by any media organization, even something that should be amicably managed, you see them using a sledgehammer on a fly, like we usually say. The NBC, this is the point where the National Broadcast Organization, the NBC, and every other organization, the Minister of Information and the National Orientation Agency, this is when every one of them should use their offices to address this issue. Let's not say because it happened to one manager who is in Ebony State, who is going to speak for him? Does he really have a godfather somewhere? Or maybe because it happened to a station in Badagi FM in Mina, we could say, oh, it doesn't really matter. It's their problem, they can fix it. But the truth of the matter is that the NBC is failing in its primary responsibilities. As an organization, the NBC's job is not just to make sure that they regulate the broadcast organization. Their responsibility goes beyond that. It includes protecting broadcast organizations. That is why we have, again, speaking of this, what is the Broadcast Society of Nigeria that was just inaugurated a few years ago? I don't know if they're really interested in their members. I don't know if the guy that was sacked at Ebony State was the manager, is a member of the Broadcast Society of Nigeria. I don't know if the Badagi FM are also registered. I believe they all should, like we all are. The point I'm trying to make in all of this is these organizations should be sensitive and proactive when issues like this comes up. As yes, monitor this broadcast organization, but ensure that when they need you, when they're being oppressed by the government, you can stand up to be counted. But guess what? Again, why would say we expect the MDC to stand up and do something about some of this situation? Irony of it all is who appoints the people who are heading this broadcast organization? The government does. So when we talk about independence of the media and how some of these regulatory organizations should be in positions to, address core issues where there are fallouts with governments and what have you, you discover that they are also limited. The reason why they are limited is that they are appointed by the government of the day. So the independence of the media is breached from the point where organizations that regulate the media have been appointed by individuals running the organizations that regulate the media have been appointed by the government, and they like to say, he who pays the piper dictates the tune. So the point is, if we are going to talk about independence of the media and how this organization should function, I also believe that a broadcast organization should stand up and begin to do the needful. How do I mean? When there are issues like this, there are radio stations association in Nigeria, radio station owners association in Nigeria. There are other smaller, groups where the radio station owners and what have you. When issues like this crop up, it is pertinent for people to understand that the owners of this radio station should stand up and begin to speak up and demand for justice where and when necessary. Practitioners like ourselves too, which is why I appreciate this platform, to say, when you say you have warned a person over and over again over their actions when it comes to not speaking against the government, you're basically telling the young man, do not do your job. You just stay, be there as a dummy. Whatever they want you to say, you open your mouth and say it. What you don't want, you don't say it. But critically speaking, where does that leave us? What makes it media in that case? So I believe that everyone who is directly involved or indirectly involved should use their platform to begin to demand for the needful to be done. As far as I'm concerned, the guy in Ebony State, I do not see what he said or did that should warrant a sack. So either way, we don't have an independent organization monitors the media or the regulates broadcast organization in Nigeria, because these are government appointees. And of course, the radio station owners and broadcast society of Nigeria, everyone should come on board and begin to look at these things critically, take a stand, and agree that there is need to address some of the excesses of government.
Seeing that the media is, gagged, but then the public is always expecting the media to report on the environment, what is happening, how it is happening. But when the table turns, there is nobody to protect them. And then the people that has the say, the eyes always take the power and do whatever they want to do. I want to know, what is the position of the media in our society and going globally? If this was done in another country, what do you think would have been the outcome?
Okay, first and foremost, you can't do this in other countries. The reason is that there is somewhat of independence when it comes to the media regulation. I'll give you an example. In the US, CNN, ABC, and several other broadcast organizations do not just exercise independence. It is seen in the way they deliver in their content and the broadcast content, and the independence of their operators, broadcasters also to give their opinions. Here is what I'm getting at when I use the US, for instance. Okay, let's even go to the UK. We have seen situations where sitting AOPs, presenters on air, and they call out to do events. And you have never heard that someone was sacked because they spoke up about government. The truth of the matter is, this makes Nigeria as a country look really bad before the world. Every day in the news, there are stories of how Christians are being killed, or how this is going on in Nigeria, the killing, all kinds of drama that plays out. The truth is, media organizations actually underreport this story, because when you actually report what is going on, the government is going to come for you. But the irony again is, there are organizations that are independent of Nigerian government, international media organizations that carry these stories, and they're all out there. So when the media lacks its independence, what automatically happens is that you are not just gagging the media organization, you are gagging the society. So it is not just the media owners that should be worried about this, or practitioners. The society should be worried about it, because the information we give out while I'm speaking on Signature TV this morning is going out to people that I don't even know, because the audience of the media is a heterogeneous audience where both the poor, the rich, the educated, the uneducated, everybody converge for information. That is primarily what the media is about. So when we sit back and act like we don't know what is going on or the impact of this, as a people, we are basically saying, supporting the right silence from the community, silence from the people, from the state, from other institutions, human rights organizations, what have you, or legal organizations like the NBA. I kind of forgot that. What they are doing when they keep mum, when issues like this come up, is basically saying, we don't need the media, whether they exist or not, we don't care. But the danger, like I said, is when the government gags radio stations or media practitioners, the government is also gagging the people. So I believe that this should also be a wake-up call for those who care, who are listening, who want to understand that there is need to do the needful when such issues comes up.
Exactly. Well, thank you so much, Vivian Glass, for this lovely conversation. I mean, moving on, we do hope that this issue of gagging, particularly in Nigeria, when it comes to media, will be resolved. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Vivian.
We are local.
The international community is observing
Why the meat market is in chaos. People are...
We are national.
Those in support of this motion as amended, say aye. Aye. We have taken this by before.
We are international.
Israeli airstrikes.
Donald Trump left us the worst unemployment.
Signature TV, news in your pocket.